An Australia-wide survey has found a concerning number of teenage boys feel like they're under pressure to adhere to rigid and restrictive ideas about masculinity. The report, compiled by the Men's Project at Jesuit Social Services, found nearly half of the boys surveyed felt the need to appear confident and strong. Of the boys who endorsed rigid ideas about masculinity, nearly half said no one knows them well. 1 in 4 had been physically hurt by someone else in the past, and the same number said they believed if a man was violent to his partner, they probably deserved it or did something to provoke it. More than 80% of the 14 to 18-year-old boys who'd watched pornography had seen women enduring a harmful act. But there was some encouraging data. 80% of the survey respondents were bothered by sexist jokes, and 95% were bothered by the harassment of women. Jesuit Social Services says restrictive masculine ideas are harmful for everyone.
Boys who endorse these restrictive masculine ideas are more likely to use aggression, they're more likely to bully others. They're also more likely to sexually harass women and retaliate when rejected. And they're not going too well themselves either. They're more likely to experience poor mental health, loneliness, and are also more likely to be victims of violence themselves.
Dr. Zach Seidler is a men's mental health expert, and he's with me in the studio. Good to see you, Zach. So what do you make of this report? There is some good news in it, but as someone at the coalface, as it were, what's your take on the situation?
Well, I'm really glad to see that the doom and gloom that we've been witnessing in the media about men and masculinity is slowly starting to die out a little. We are having some positive news stories coming out here around the fact that young men specifically are starting to break the walls of the man box, if it were. And we're really actually starting to understand that young men want more for themselves. They understand the bind that they're in. They feel the pressure on a day-to-day basis to live up to a standard that they actually don't want to adhere to, that they feel is not in line with their values and their beliefs about women and girls, for instance. And I'm actually starting to see on the ground as well that young men are willing to have these conversations and engage in this movement, as it were, rewriting, remaking what manhood can look like today.
One of the most striking statistics that we just heard is that nearly half of boys and young men who feel pressured to be masculine said that no one knows them well. That's such a telling line, isn't it? Why are boys feeling so isolated and misunderstood?
It's really sad, to be honest, and I think that we need to remember that we need empathy here if we're going to make change. We need young men to feel seen, to feel heard, to feel like they matter and that they have value. I think we have a clash right now whereby contemporary and traditional ideas of manhood are butting up against one another, and young guys are confused. They don't really know which way is up and down. We need to provide them with a path, and that means bringing them into the tent, saying, you can write this with us. We're not going to decide what masculinity looks like for you. We want to understand what actually matters to you.
How do you break through that image that some boys feel that the pressure to adopt, to be strong and to be overly masculine?
Well, the really interesting thing in the report, and something we do a lot of at Movember ourselves, is this idea of the perception gap, which is this notion that lots of these young guys feel that culture is telling them that they need to be strong and confident and man up, but they personally don't actually want to ascribe to those values. It's not important to them. And it's there, it's in that gap that you end up having this pressure to be something that you're not. That's where the mask comes from, and that's where you end up feeling very isolated. So breaking down for young men that the guy next to you on the bus is feeling the same way as you are. And in the locker room, the other 8 guys don't want to laugh at that sexist joke. You're all just doing it because you're afraid of being called out. And policing of masculinity is really dangerous.
So you say you're optimistic about the future?
I believe in the power of young men, what they want, what they need, and the fact that they actually really are striving for an equitable world where they have a place and a value that matters to them and those around them.
Dr. Zach Seidler, good to see you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And the ABC is seeking your input on this topic. If you'd like to be part of the conversation, go to abc.net.au/masculinity or use the QR code on the screen to share your experience navigating the pressures of modern-day masculinity. Your submission will be reviewed by a small team of specialist reporters for future coverage of the issue.